Middle class, as if there is no upper or lower, and it's somehow this middle class, which is used because for some reason people don't want to use the word working class. And I have to note, I hear Bernie actually is using the word working class. Most of the other politicians don't want to call it that. I guess it sounds too lefty or something, I don't know. But he's actually talking about the existence of a billionaire class. And that's something new for anyone who's actually contends in any of the major parties, including the Democratic Party. But that's what we're seeing now, someone who is talking about a class, the billionaires, as the source of the problem, and is also using the word socialism. And a lot of people, particularly in the Clinton campaign, are having a little trouble knowing how to deal with all of this. This is not the kind of script that they're used to talking to. But Secretary Clinton has been saying she represents something unique herself and something potentially breakthrough, and the fact that a woman could be president is in itself progressive. When she's asked, is she progressive, that's essentially her anti-establishment character, that the establishment is made up of men, primarily, and the fact that a woman could break through that's progressive. And a lot of women, and particularly women older than, in their 50s or in their 60s, a majority of those women apparently are agreeing with that argument, while the vast majority of younger women are not. As we know, Gloria Steinem kind of said the reason younger women are going to Bernie is because that's where the boys are. And it's something to do with the girls are looking for dates, so they go to events, Sanders events. I think she kind of apologized for saying that, but I don't know if she thought it was a speaking point or whatever, but she did say it. Anyway, we're going to talk, our next guest is someone who is in the age category where most women are supporting, Democratic women are supporting Secretary Clinton, but she's not. So now joining us in the studio is Sylvia Gale. She's a former New Hampshire representative. She's going to be running again for the New Hampshire legislature, and she was a state employee before that. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for being here.
So let's talk about, first of all, let's start off about this question. The Clinton campaign is saying that if Bernie Sanders has a deaf ear on women's issues. I interviewed earlier, a few days ago, the president of NOW, and she said that you can't just say fighting for economic equality or fighting for what we call a political revolution from below, that if you don't fight also specifically on issues that are of concern to women, then you're not getting it, she says, and he doesn't, and Hillary does, and that's why they think women should be voting for Hillary. What do you make of the argument?
Well, that's a very interesting argument, because as someone who has devoted her life to activist feminist politics, as a progressive, I was quite alarmed to hear what Gloria Steinem said the other night on Bill Maher. I think, given that it was Bill Maher's show, she was in possibly a joking mood, and maybe didn't mean it for the serious thud that it landed the next morning on all of our news blogs. So I don't know about that. And since she's, wheeled back that statement a little bit, I think she was surprised that it took on the life of its own. I was pretty much more distressed when I heard Madeleine Albright depict that there's a special place in hell for women who don't support other women. And I've devoted my career to advocating, supporting, and providing safety.
I can't resist saying, given Madeleine Albright's record on foreign policy, she should be very knowledgeable about special places in hell, but at any rate, go ahead.
That's besides the point, because, personally, I've spent 4 decades in New Hampshire advocating and supporting the most disenfranchised women and children through my work as a domestic violence, sexual assault, and child abuse prevention and protection advocate. So, and on the side as well, doing activism in the streets for...
But the underlying point here is that this is a breakthrough moment for women. To have the first female president is, as a lot of Clinton supporters are saying, on the same scale of having the first black president. And it trumps, again, I said earlier, I'm not going to keep, every time I use the word Trump, talk about it, so I better stop. It's more important. than other considerations. Okay, hang on just one second. We're going to go live to Jessica Devereaux in the field, and we'll come right back with that question. Okay, so Jessica, what do you got?
I really love the language he speaks to with healthcare as a right, just like education is a right in this country, our ability to speak our mind. And here...
They're ready to go live.
I'm ready, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, we're ready. Let me know.
So we're talking about the same stuff?
Yeah, same stuff. I'm going to ask you the same question.
3, 2,
We... New Hampshire. I'm joined now by a Bernie Sanders supporter. Bernie was just inside at a town hall where he was addressing many different issues. What issue really resonated with you?
There was several points that really resonated with me, and that's the income and wealth gap. That is just the disparity is growing in this country, and he just really addresses it head on. And then the underfunded programs in our country, from women's care to education, and then of course healthcare as a right really speaks to me as a voter.
Okay, healthcare. A lot of people have been pushing back on his plan for healthcare because they're saying it's going to raise taxes for the middle class. What do you say to that?
Well, I say do the research. His campaign has laid it out pretty forward with those various tax structures, and then the taking away the premium, healthcare premiums. He's saving people thousands of dollars in that plan. It could be a game changer for many Americans, especially those that don't have health care.
And so essentially in the long run, it will be cheaper for folks.
That's what his plan has laid out, that it would save thousands of dollars in health care premiums, where a slight tax break wouldn't even affect by the savings.
There was another moment you told me about where he had people sort of have testimonials. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, no, it was very intriguing. And of course, in New Hampshire, you have a very outspoken group of people here. Yes. So no one hesitated to share their thoughts, even when he didn't ask for it. But it was he handled it wonderfully. But no, he spoke to the student debt crisis that, especially myself as a young person, bearing some of that debt. He called on audience members to share what that debt actually looked like for people here in New Hampshire, and we had two people stand up. Both two young women, one with a $130,000 undergraduate degree here in New Hampshire, and then another young woman studied at Columbia University owing $200,000 in student debt.
$200,000.
Right. And when you think about it, I'm 5 years out of college. I don't own a home. I'm looking at buying a home. And to think that my parents, may have bought their first home for $40,000, where today I need to go look at, $400,000 home. Yeah. So not only is it the student debt, it's the retail market. There's incredible gap in our ability to be Americans when we're burdened so much by every angle.
Let's talk a little bit about being American, and part of being American is sometimes projecting power, military might in the world. And Bernie Sanders has come out with his foreign policy plan. People have looked at his record and says it's not progressive enough, especially when it's his ties to AIPAC, being so strongly loyal to Israel, looking at how he would like to deal with the Syrian civil war there. What do you feel about that? How do you feel?
Well, that is one area that I'm not as well versed as I would like. Mm-hmm. But from his language about coming to the table, and one of the big things I think President Obama, Secretary Kerry have also done is when you bring people to the table, you're able to break down barriers that you wouldn't be able to with military might. Mm-hmm. And I feel Bernie, might be able to carry that torch and bring people to the table to discuss how we can progress as a global community in a way that doesn't take human life and divide the world. We're under this incredible globalization. Mm-hmm. You talk about wealth gap in the United States. It is unfathomable to put it at a global scale. And I think Bernie, he sees that, and I think he could push things more progressively, I'm sure.
Okay. Well, I know you are here in Manchester, New Hampshire. We'd love to have you back on the program. She actually does cooperatives here in New Hampshire, right? Just tell us a little bit about that.
Yes. No. The cooperative business model, I think, is a game changer for our local economies, for our global economy, where you take the business structure from you change how you organize shareholding in a company from outside small group investors to the people at the heart of a business. I know REI is a growing familiar face in the cooperative movement because they did this whole opt-out side. They shut down all of their retail stores. Not only are they changing the game for their employees by allowing them to celebrate a holiday, and not just a day, but a holiday weekend.
Yeah, yeah.
They're a co-op. They're owned by their consumers. The group that I work for is a nonprofit affiliated with many other groups, from Ace Hardware to CCA Global Partners and Carpet One Floor and Home right here in Manchester. And these are groups, these are businesses that go out of their way to center their business structure around the people at the heart of their business, from their consumers to their employees to their small business owners.
Okay, well, we got to get you in the studio because I'm sure our host over there, Paul J., will have a lot to discuss with you and sort of thinking about this cooperative movement and challenge you a little bit about all of these things. We're going to send it back to you, Paul, in the studio.
Hey, we're back in the studio covering the live from the New Hampshire primary. We're back with Sylvia Gale. Thanks for joining us again. So I was asking you a question just before we cut to Jessica's interview, but it was quite pertinent because we're talking about whether the possibility of electing a female president is more important than some of the other kinds of issues. And that young woman that Jessica was talking to, who's a Sanders supporter, is exactly the problem that Hillary's having.
Yep.
That these young women are not thinking it's more important. But a couple of the counter arguments that they're saying to younger women is, one, you don't get how difficult it was to get to a place where a woman could be in a position to run like this. And clearly there's truth to that. And the second thing they're saying is, given this historic possibility of a woman winning, you may be undermining that by supporting a candidacy, meaning Sanders, that in the end actually can't win, but you're weakening the ability of Hillary to run later. So given all of this, the importance of females supporting females is more important than the other things, and clearly this young woman doesn't think so. What do you make of it?
Well, I have to give you a little bit of perspective with that too. This is not the first time I've heard that argument. In 2008, my last official state job before I retired 5 years ago was as the executive director of the New Hampshire Commission on the Status of Women. And in 2008, I felt that Barack Obama held the promise to be president, and he won my support at that time. And it was not a gender divide, it was not a racial divide, it was the quality of the promise and his ability to deliver it in my eyes that made me support him. So yes, I do. I would love to have a woman president. And I also can't help but think, and I'm not making any judgment about it, but think about the historical perspective of women.
Excuse me,
yeah.
I don't know what that is. Hang on for 1 second. Oh. Okay, there's people in the lobby here protesting, and I wonder, can we get a camera on it? Well, there's a protest in the lobby of the hotel where all the media is, and we're trying to get a camera over there as fast as we can so we can see what it is. And excuse me 1 second, keep rolling, but hang on a second. Somebody should get down there and see what it is, too. Let's get some information on it. Who's protesting? You can hear they're singing. All right, so it sounds like a whole group of young women, actually.
Absolutely, it does. Yeah, so if you want to look, I think they're done.
All right, well, we're gonna, oh, here we go, they're still singing. Hold on, have we got a camera on this yet?
We'll be there in a minute. We'll be for another like 5 minutes.
We can't just drag one of these ones over, right? All right, well, we weren't expecting this, so, all right, can you hear us? Should we keep doing the interview?
All right.
All right. Well, again, here's young women. I actually don't know who they support, but as we know, a majority of these young women are supporting Sanders. But go on.
Yeah. You know, and I don't necessarily agree that a majority of young women are supporting Bernie Sanders. I've been working with the campaign volunteers, I've been working with the campaign staff.
I don't think a majority of young women are supporting Bernie Sanders.
I don't see that necessarily.
The numbers are showing that significant.
Oh, are they really?
Oh, by large numbers, by
that.
60–70%.
But you know, I have to think, being as old as I am and having lived through marching for the ERA and fighting for choice and continuing to have to fight for choice even 30 years and 40 years after Roe v. Wade was passed, was enacted. You know, I have to, you know, sometimes look at historical perspectives too. And this is not the first and last chance for a woman to be president. If you look at women's suffrage, the women's suffrage movement, it was running in parallel with the civil rights movement to grant voting rights for persons of color. And actually, whether I like it or not, somewhere in the mix of that, the women took a back seat to allow the Civil Rights Voting Rights Act to move forward, to empower all persons of color in our country to have voting rights. And they continued to vote for women's suffrage, and we did achieve women's suffrage.
All right, it's getting pretty loud.
It is very loud. Good background.
Have we got a camera on here yet? Okay, we're going here in a second. Well, we're still not entirely sure what it is. Are they not singing Bernie, Bernie?
No, I think they're singing
Berman
Hillary.
Supreme. They're supporting a candidate called Berman. Who is that?
Berman, our perennial candidate, who wears a boot on his head. He's campaigning this year as a Democrat or as a Republican. I don't know. He changes from year to year. And he promises everyone a pony.
A pony?
A pony.
Oh, so
vote for Berman. You don't have to brush your teeth and you get a pony. It's the New Hampshire primary. What can I say?
This is for fun. All right. So it has nothing to do with what we're talking about.
It has nothing to do with what we're talking about.
All right.
It's Berman.
It's Berman. All right.
I think he's been running for at least 10 years.
Okay.
Or 12 years, I guess. 3 cycles.
All right. So let's go back to where we were then. So what attracted you to Sanders? What specific kind of policies? Actually, before you answer that, if there wasn't a Sanders in the race, if there was a more conventional Democrat running against Hillary, would you have supported Hillary?
I was really enamored with Martin O'Malley. I didn't think it was his time necessarily, but I love some of what he has done as a mayor, as a governor.
Now, I have to say, we're from Baltimore,
yeah.
And we don't need to, at this moment, go after Martin O'Malley, but we're not so enamored.
There's mixed reviews on that, I am aware.
Yeah,
I am aware of
yeah.
that. But, you know, I really thought that he was, a wonderful candidate to have in the mix as well.
So even if there was no Sanders, what is it about Hillary that you don't want to vote for Hillary, first female president or not?
It's not that I don't. You know, some of my basic concerns, being a social justice activist, one that comes to mind that's quite black and white is the death penalty. I've long been an advocate of abolishing the death penalty. And I don't think, not that I have heard, has she evolved to that position at this time. She's not alone in that, but that's something that is important to me, that I've not seen any change. Issues such as the TPP project, that's bad for workers, it's bad for unions, it's bad for our economy, and although I've been a fervent supporter of President Obama, I don't agree. Look at LGBT issues, equal marriage in New Hampshire. We enacted it by law, not by court edict. And yes, now she says yes, but she didn't always. And, those transitions, those evolutions, if you will, those have given me little red flags and say, so are they for real? Or will they change again? Nothing is forever and the only constant is change. I'm fully aware of that. But those are some basic issues that concern me, that I worry about, and those are just small steps to making my decision to support Bernie Sanders.
All right. Well, thanks very much. I'm not really sure what we're doing next. Nobody's talking to me. What are we doing next, guys? This is an interview we did a few days ago. It's Jessica Devereaux interviewing Alan Grayson and asking him if he's going to endorse either Bernie Sanders or Hillary Clinton. And And here we go. Thanks very much for joining us.
Thank you. My pleasure.
And here's the clip.
I mean, obviously, my progressive track record on legislation is closer to Bernie's than it is to Hillary's when she was in the Senate, obviously.
Yes.
But I have to make sure that I don't undermine either candidate if they're going to be on the ticket in November.
People of the United States of America, your Congress is bought.
The American people are disgusted by Wall Street bailouts.
Welcome to The Real Capitol Hill. I'm your host, Jessica Devereaux, coming to you from Capitol Hill, where we're joined by Congressman Alan Grayson. He represents the 9th District of Florida and has been a champion for protecting Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, and pushing back on austerity measures. He's a member of the Congressional Progressive Caucus, and he's currently running for Senate. Thank you so much for joining us, Congressman.
It's a pleasure. Thank you, too.
So we have to just get into Iowa before we start talking about policy. It was basically a photo finish between Senator Sanders and Secretary of State Hillary Clinton. And I have to ask you, who are you endorsing?
I haven't endorsed either one of them. I'm running for the Senate in Florida. I have to be able and willing to work with either of them, depending upon who gets the nomination. Okay. I've said the important things that there need to be said about both of them. With regard to Secretary Clinton, I've said that she's a very well-qualified candidate, one of the best qualified candidates of my entire life. She's been in the Senate, she's been in the cabinet, and I think it makes a difference for the country to have a woman as President of the United States. With regard to Bernie Sanders on MSNBC recently, I called him a national treasure. He's been right on every issue now for 20 years or more, and that certainly has to count for something as well.
But I want to push back on her being qualified, because some folks will say, yes, her resume, you know, is certainly there, but what she stands for is not necessarily progressive and in line with what you advocate for. I mean, you have talked about a $15 minimum wage. You and Bernie Sanders are both members of the Progressive Caucus. When Secretary Clinton was Senator Clinton, she was not a member of the Progressive Caucus. So why wouldn't you support Senator Sanders instead?
Well, to be fair to Senator Clinton, first of all, on social issues, I think that her experience and her record is unblemished.
Unblemished?
Unblemished. I can't think of any occasion when she's been on the wrong side of a social issue. Obviously, she's pro-choice, and I could go on from there.
Okay.
And I think she's been a powerful champion of equal rights for women and minorities for a generation. With regard to economic issues, I see your point. I agree with you. There is a difference between a $12 minimum wage, which is what she supports, and a $15 an hour minimum wage, which is what Bernie Sanders supports. So I'll concede the point there. Okay. And I also feel, in an area that you didn't mention, that I've been somewhat concerned about some of the foreign policy.
What in particular?
I have to, well, in particular, the fact that, unlike Joe Biden, for instance, Secretary Clinton never spoke out in favor of ending the wars in Afghanistan and Iraq any earlier.
And she voted for the Iraq War.
She voted for the Iraq War. So all of that is true. I can't argue with you there.
Okay. And what about her stance on the TPP? Before her as Secretary of State, she really helped bring it together. She's now against it. But now we have the president of the Chamber of Commerce, Tom Donahue, saying that if she's elected, she's going to support the TPP. And you're very much against the TPP. So what about that?
I don't know why he's saying that. I don't know what would make him think that. Frankly, it sounds like it might be sabotage.
You don't know, I mean, in terms of the interest behind her, Wall Street being behind her, corporations being behind her, supporting her candidacy, there's no link there?
I think that Bernie's done a magnificent job of lighting up the grassroots. You know, I can't remember anybody else in my lifetime at this stage in the presidential cycle who could boast that he had over 3 million contributions from virtually everybody who regards himself as a progressive. There's no question that his money base for this campaign is, in some respects, healthier than hers.
And when you say healthier, what do you mean by that?
What I mean is it's more reflective of the grassroots, and it's more reflective, frankly, of people who want nothing in return for their support except for good government. When somebody gives $100,000 or $1 million to a super PAC, there's a good chance that they want something in return for that.
Or a speaking fee for $400,000 at Goldman Sachs.
Again, I mean, I see those kinds of quid pro quos in this building from time to time.
Yes.
And I have enormous respect and admiration for Bernie for me able to do something similar to what Barack Obama did 8 years ago, except taking it to the next level. You know, Barack Obama never actually said to large donors, I don't want your money. Bernie is coming very close to doing that, and I think that's a very healthy thing for our democracy. Bernie does not spend his time on fundraising, he spends his time on legislating. And frankly, the same thing is true of me. I've got the 5th largest donor base in the Democratic Party. Over 100,000 people have come to our website, senatorwithguts.com, and made a contribution at the website. And that gives me the same liberty that Bernie has had over the years to be right on the issues and be a champion for ordinary folks and try to preserve the middle class. So Bernie gets high marks from me in that regard for having run his campaign in an exceedingly clean manner.
But you still won't endorse him?
Well, I mean, look at it from my point of view, okay? My point of view is that if it turns out that Hillary's on the ticket and I'm on the ticket in November in Florida, I don't want anybody to say that we're working at cross purposes with each other. I mean, obviously, my progressive track record on legislation is closer to Bernie's than it is to Hillary's when she was in the Senate, obviously.
Yes.
But I have to make sure that I don't undermine either candidate if they're going to be on the ticket in November.
So when do you think you'll make your endorsement?
Oh, I think, you know, I want to consult with our grassroots. I'm going to see what people have to say about that. I'm going to get more input from people who actually represent the progressive movement and see what they have to say. And by the way, I don't want it to sound like Bernie has all of the grassroots and Hillary doesn't. That's not how I see it. I think Bernie has a substantial majority of the grassroots.
What portion of the grassroots do you see Hillary having?
I don't know. I can't quantify it for you, but there are plenty of, shall we say, the people who actually register the voters, the people who knock on the doors, the people who make the phone calls. There are plenty of people who support Hillary. You can see that from the polls. I mean, the polls still show Hillary ahead nationwide, even though in New Hampshire, Bernie is well ahead.
Let's switch gears a little bit and talk about the Trans-Pacific Partnership.
Yes.
Today is a huge day in the step of making it a reality, the TPP. A lot of folks know we've talked about it here on the program. Folks can go watch episodes of the TPP that we've discussed here at The Real News. You are very much against the TPP. Now we're seeing it being signed by Pacific Rim countries today.
Right.
What is your reaction?
It's a disaster for the American middle class. If we do nothing, you can kiss this country goodbye.
Okay.
We're already $11 trillion in debt to foreign countries. That's almost $40,000 for every man, woman, and child in this country. What if they came to you tomorrow and said, we want our $40,000?
Welcome back to the Real News Network. We're live from New Hampshire and Manchester, covering the primaries. Excuse me. Now, you can send questions or comments to us. You can do it on Twitter at The Real News. You can go to our Facebook page, just search for The Real News Network. You can email us at contact@therealnews.com. And if you have questions for guests, comments, things you would like us to take up, please send us a note. Jessica Devereaux, our producer, is in the field now, and she's talking to, she's at the rally, or the place where there's about to be a big Sanders rally, and she's talking to people going into the rally, and here she is talking to a Sanders supporter.
Hey, Paul, we're outside the Palace Theater in New Hampshire. I'm joined by Dale Lance, who's a volunteer with the Sanders campaign. Bernie just wrapped up some people are saying powerful speech.
Absolutely. Very powerful.
You've been out here volunteering, canvassing, going door to door, trying to get New Hampshireites to vote for him.
Absolutely.
Came all the way from Maryland.
Yep.
Tell me about what you're hearing and what the energy is like here.
The energy is really amazing. Going door to door, I'm meeting a lot of people who are really enthusiastic the minute they see my Bernie Sanders campaign label. I think I've lost it, and are really expressing a sense of commitment and excitement that I find very inspiring. I came up here from Maryland because I really want to add to that energy, want to contribute to it. One of the people that I knocked on the door said, "What makes you think you should come and tell me how to vote?" And I said, "Oh, I'm not here to tell you how to vote. I'm here because I really think this energy to do what Bernie is calling for is important. And I want to do whatever I can to support you guys in voting for Bernie.
I hear you, Dale. And earlier we were talking about what happens, though, if Bernie is leading the polls in New Hampshire.
Right.
We're not saying that he's not going to take New Hampshire, but let's say he doesn't go all the way and becomes a Democratic nominee. There's all that energy, that momentum. If he doesn't win, does it get lost? What should people be thinking?
I don't think it does get lost, and that's part of what brought me up here from Maryland, is that it's an energy that I think the Democratic Party needs to build on and can build on. So I'm here to in part help the party do what I think it needs to do. I've been saying some of these things myself, and believing some of these things for years, about income inequality, about the need for the party, the governmental structures to listen to people, to respond to the real needs of real human beings.
Yeah.
I'm here because I really want to support and promote a kind of dialogue within the wider community about what needs to be done. I think Bernie has given us a real kick in the pants, and is drawing attention to things that he knows how to work on and that we can build on. So
you say we, being a Democrat, you mean yourself
absolutely,
and your group. Okay, but some might say that the Democratic establishment, let's take for example the DNC chair, Debbie Wasserman Schultz.
Right.
You saw what happened where they were trying to punish Sanders for allegedly taking contacts from Hillary's list, things of that nature.
Right.
She's come out publicly saying she's going to support Hillary. How can you actually have a fair and let's say even more progressive agenda when you have such establishment politics being cemented in the Democratic Party?
I don't see it being cemented.
Okay.
And I see Bernie and his followers really saying to the Democratic Party, we're not going to listen to this. We are not going to settle for your attempts to silence what Bernie represents. So I don't see it as being cemented. I don't see the door being slammed irrevocably in our face if it should happen that he doesn't win.
So you think you can push them further and further for a progressive agenda?
I think so.
Okay. Well,
that's what I really want to do. I'm not interested in beating Hillary down or discounting what Hillary says she stands for. I am interested in keeping the dialogue going. That's how a revolution works.
Okay.
It doesn't just happen instantaneously, one time only. It's a process.
All right, we're going to watch that process.
I
Dale,
hope so.
thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you, Jessica.
Paul, back to you in the studio.